I'm really honored to be here today, and I know that I'm amongst friends. And so, I have prepared some thoughts for today. I've also prepared some feelings for today, right? That's important as well. But it's nice to be talking in the month where we're really talking about the importance of love, isn't it? And I think the heart is the center of love for each of us. So I want to talk about this dynamic between the mind and the heart a little bit today. You know, David and Lori were talking a little bit about change. We know that change is really always present, isn't it? We all live in a world where this world will change little by little, even by the end of the day, won't it? Every day we wake to a changed world. And so change is not new for us. We know that change occurs for us both in our professional as well as our personal lives. At work or our jobs, we're always experiencing change. We have change in policies, change in leaders, change in everything that we do, customers that we work with. We have all types of dynamic we face every day with that. In our professional life or in our personal lives as well, constant change, right? Children growing up, friendships changing, relationships beginning, relationships maybe even ending, right? Change is not new for us. Heraclitus says that change is the one constant, and I think that that is true. In the midst of it as well, you're driving own change in your life, right? Change that you yourself are opting to create. Your own personal growth, your own evolution, education you may be attaining. Whatever that is for you, you yourself are a change agent in your life, aren't you? Our teaching teaches us this, isn't it? We learn the principles of this to do this. What I recognize is that in a changing world, in a world that we're also changing, we are always at the intersection of what is changing around us as well as what we ourselves are changing. And it begs the question, really, doesn't it? How do we maintain? How do we show up as our best self, regardless of the circumstances that we're facing? It is true that how you respond is important. I think the answer to both questions of how we both maintain our best self in any moment, as well as how do we persevere to be our best selves and achieve what we're reaching for, is the same answer. Over the last 30 years, my education and career is focused on achieving a master's degree. I've taught at the university level. I've worked for a Fortune 10 company for about 25 years. And then the last 12 years, I've been involved in executive leadership development. And in my personal life, I have a passion for self-discovery and personal development. As you know, I've completed some certifications in mindfulness and spirituality. And I love having and being with good friends and my pets. I think that most of us, when we recognize all the blessings that we have, we truly can look in the mirror and say, I have a good life, right? But like each of you, I've had many varied experiences in my life, and I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. I've had both wonderful and difficult experiences. I've had experiences where I've thrived, and there's others that I wondered if I could even survive. I've succeeded, and I have failed in relationships. I've been a great and also poor spouse and friend. I've responded well to tough circumstances, and sometimes I've crumbled in the face of adversity. I've strived and I've reached goals, and I've also made little progress on some that were very important to me. I've been both deliriously happy and also painfully sad. Maybe you have too? Overall, my life is common because I think these are common experiences. But what I do know is that we've all experienced these things. And to me, that's really the skill that we're here to learn. How do we respond to life, regardless of the circumstance, in our best possible way? To me, it's what I call something called self-empowerment. I think that you can call it personal development. I think that you can talk about a conscious response to life, a conscious approach to life. It's all the same. Because we're all doing something very important. We're developing an ability to self-empower our best response. But it is possible, even though that it's hard. You know, Maya Angelou gives us a perspective on this. She said, "You may not be able to control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide to not be reduced by them." And one thing I know for certain from all my years in learning and development is this, that an individual's level of their personal empowerment affects how well they do anything. And this is why it's important for us to focus on. Because when we experience low levels of self-empowerment, we really fall into disempowerment. And it's a slippery slope from there. You know, we can train people, we can teach people, we can provide knowledge and skills, we can share our personal experiences, we can show up for friends. But the truth is when they're in that place of empowerment, or disempowerment, it's hard for them to hear what we're saying, isn't it? And so we understand that because sometimes we've been there. I really do believe that a person's particular level of self-empowerment impacts everything they do. How well we perform our jobs, how well we show up in relationships, truly everything we say and do. You know, I was recently in St. Croix with some friends, and that was fun. But we ended up in this house in this really great space, but one in particular feature was that they had this nice deck where you just opened to the sky. The weather was perfect really almost every single day. It was about almost clear skies every day. But at night then you have this big sky, right, with all the stars and you know all the stuff. And I don't know about you, for me, but I just love to go lay down and look at them because it is thought-provoking for me. It is energizing, and it was one of the favorite things we did because every single night we literally like, okay, the sun's down, let's go look at the stars. And our conversations kind of went everywhere, right? And it was like all over the board. It was like whatever came up. And then we all just kind of started posing questions to one another. You know, it was all over the board. It was like, do you think there's life on other planets, you know? Or what's the favorite thing you've ever done? Or where's the favorite place you've ever been? But one of the questions that was posed is, what are you doing when you're at your best self? That was a good question, wasn't it? I was like, what am I doing when I'm at my best self? And I thought, well, you know, there were all kinds of answers in the group. I love walking my dog. It's a very peaceful time for me. It's a great space for me every day. Or I love body surfing on my favorite beach in Hawaii. That was John Musser. But for me, I got very clear on something. I am in my best self when my mind and my heart and my body are a clear vessel and in alignment. Because in that space, every experience is a good one. I don't know about you, but when you get into that state of being, I really believe that we are at our most powerful. We are when happiness can spring forward. We're when our frustrations can dissolve away. And so for me, that's the basis of my talk. I want to talk about this inner relationship between the mind and the heart and the body. You know, I have recently finished the first draft of my first book. Woo. It's a long way from getting published, you know, or self-publishing, but someday. But at this point in time, I want to tell you that the title of my book right now is called Catalyst. It's called Catalyst, The Dynamics of Self-Empowerment. And what I'm sharing includes some of the concepts from it. Basically, here's some background on it. I was able to do a survey with a lot of different types of people that I call change agents. And so what I consider a change agent is anybody who works with another individual to help them facilitate, whether that be life improvement, whether that be job performance improvement. That can include things like counselors, psychologists, whether it be leaders or managers. You know, it can be practitioners, it can be pastors, it can be speakers. And so I had an opportunity to do a pretty expansive survey. And what I learned from them is that there really are some key things that help empower us. And I won't bore you with the list of that right now. It's not the focus of my talk. But I will tell you that when you look at the data of it, it's very easy to see that there are 3 areas where we all have capacity, and that capacity is inherent in each of us. And I want to talk about those. In particularly, each of these capacities are within our influence. These capacities help you to take back your own power at any point in time, and they can ready you to attend any meeting or any circumstance. And these capacities are what most of us already know. They are the realms of the mind and the heart and the aligned actions that we take. So stay with me. We certainly understand the realm and the power of the mind. We understand that that is the realm of thoughts and reasoning and rationality. But the realm of the heart, it includes our feelings and our emotions. It's how we feel in any circumstance, and sometimes long after. And our actions and behaviors really are anything we ultimately say and do. See, I think that when those two come together, we create what I call a catalyst point, and it is our greatest point of alignment and power, as I mentioned at the first of my talk. We all know how important the mind is, how we think. Certainly our thoughts influence, how we see ourselves, the world around us, and as well as our place in the world. And conscious thought can facilitate a powerful perspective change that propels us forward in any moment. Agreed? But the heart is also important. And in fact, might be equal to the mind. Because the heart also influences how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about the world around us, and our place in the world. A fearful or suffering heart can change your outlook on life, can it? And a loving and kind heart can move it in the opposite direction as well. The title of my talk was listed as the synergy. And I've always loved the term, the synergy. Synergy for me is a really powerful term. It's often defined by the sum of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, right? You've heard that. So what does that mean? Here's an easy way to remember synergy. So raise your hand, put your hand up. So you have 5 individual fingers, right? So they all kind of do finger things, right? You got 1 finger, 2 finger, 3, 4, 5, right? They all do individual finger things. But together they create a hand, don't they? And a hand can change the world, but a finger might not be able to. Well, it depends on which finger. But that said, when those fingers individually operate, they do their individual function, right? But together, they create a hand. That is the essence of what it means that the sum of the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. I think that's the same then for when we talk about the mind, the heart, and the body. Together, they create a powerful synergy, which empowers us to the core of our consciousness. See, I think that if we think about the mind as a tool, then we might want to think about the heart as a barometer, because they work together and the heart provides rich, vast information that's important to us. And when we think about which new thoughts we might want to have, you might check in with the heart to think about what those new thoughts should be, right? Let's test this for a second too, because I can talk about the influence and the relationship of these two, but I think it's something we all need to kind of make sure we get. And so let's test this for a second. So just take a second. Don't necessarily look at me. Just kind of reduce some stimuli around you, because I need you to self-reflect for a moment. But I'm going to ask you 2 questions about experiences. The first is this, and I want you to raise your hand when I ask you. Have you ever changed your thoughts about something and you felt a release in the heart? Right? Okay, so let me ask you about the other 2. I know that each of us have had experiences where we have had fearful or an aching or suffering heart, maybe times that we weren't in a real trusting space. Did you ever notice, raise your hand if this is true for you, that then your thoughts started corresponding to the way that you felt? Maybe some negative thoughts or maybe not so positive, right? Raise your hand if that was true for you as well. This inner relationship, I think we know. And the question is then, what do we do with that? What do we do with this information? I think that for us, one of the things that we can do is focus in particular on the state of our thoughts and the state of our heart that empower us the most. And what was very clear for me in the research that I did, regardless of specific mindsets or regardless of specific actions, regardless of specific emotional resolve that people have about things, it all had to do with having an open mind and an open heart. And that creates the most powerful internal resolve that we can have. And so I want to be a voice for that. That is the wisdom, really, that I want to share with you. And it may not necessarily even be new to you. In my job, I get to hire some of the top speakers and business and motivational speakers. But by far, my favorite and the most impressive and the most inspirational to me was Eric Weinmeier. He is a blind mountain climber. Has anybody heard of Eric? So, Eric lost his sight fully in his 20s, but blindness didn't stop him. Without sight, he became the first blind person to reach the summit of Mount Everest in 2001. In 2008, just 7 years later, he completed what is known as the 7 summits. He climbed the highest peak on 7 different continents. Now, I want you to really take this in, okay? Just close your eyes for a second. Just close your eyes. You don't see much, do you? Now climb a mountain. Right? Really take in that accomplishment and what he's overcome. You can open your eyes now. I can't think of a better example of somebody who's living their life at this catalyst point where their mind is filled with thoughts of possibility, that they are determined with heartfelt resolve, and that then they're taking the actions to simply try. That is what I'm talking about, and I think that when we bring those 3 pieces together, we truly are at our most powerful. And so I encourage you. I encourage myself every day. I challenge you to build mental practice. I challenge you to build emotional practice. And I challenge you to take action toward what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Be that which you want to be, right? Show up in the well-being and the state of well-being that you desire to flourish in. I have a little mantra I think that might help. I'll share it with you if it's something of value to you. From the start, open mind, open heart, and then do your part. You want to try it? So from the start, repeat. Open mind, open heart, then do my part. Let's try it one more time. From the start, open mind, open heart, and then I do my part. It reminds me that in every moment of every single day, we truly are succeeding. And there's a statistic. I want you to take a mental piece of paper in front of you. You're not really taking paper out, but take an imaginary piece of paper in front of you. And on it, I want you to put in big, black, bold letters, 100%. 100%. Do you see it? It's 100%. Let me tell you what this statistic is. This statistic is something that each of us have achieved. We achieve it every single day. And it was a powerful term that somebody once gave me. They said, Kerry, remember this. You have survived 100% of your worst days. Isn't that true? Haven't you? Haven't you survived 100% of your last? You can't get any better statistic than that, right? That should be confidence building and it should be empowering. Eric Weinmeier, as he was getting ready to speak one day, it was the second time I had hired him, and we were speaking, and I said, Eric, I'm always so impressed with you because the times I think I can't do something, I think about what you've done. And I said, you're just very impressive to me. And I said, thank you for what you do. and sharing your story. And Eric said, Kerry, and he said something I'll never forget, and I offer this to you as well. He said, I spend every day of my life reaching into the darkness, knowing that what I need will be there. I mean, think about that perspective, right? He embodies an open mind of possibility with the heart-set resolve that everything that he will need will always be there, and he simply reaches. And so I leave that story with you. I encourage you to think about the things I've mentioned. I want you to think about each day in relationship to bringing together your mind and your heart and your body. And perhaps I've told you today is nothing new. You may have learned absolutely nothing new. But perhaps I did remind you of some great truths within yourself. It reminds me of the story, The Wizard of Oz. And at the end of the movie, Dorothy, they end up at the end of the journey, and the wizard is now just a mere mortal man, and the Tin Man actually does get, he gets a certificate of good deeds for the good heart that he wanted. The lion gets a certificate of courage, and the scarecrow, he gets a heart as well. And so Dorothy's sitting there, she says, what about me? I still want to get back to Kansas. Who's going to help me get back to Kansas? So I'll respond to the comment that perhaps I've told you nothing new by sharing this, surmising what Glenda says to Dorothy. The truth is you had to learn it on your own, but you always had the power, right? And so Dorothy, you've got the power. I just reminded you of it, and I thank you for your time. Y'all have a great day.